The person you keep thinking about has something they want to tell you, and the fact that they have not said it yet, that itself is the message. Before you decide, their silence means they do not care. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely change the way you understand every quiet moment they have ever given you. You have felt it, that strange, powerful stillness between you and someone who clearly feels something but says almost nothing. You replay old conversations. You search for signs. You wonder if you imagined everything. You did not imagine it. What you are seeing is one of the most misunderstood patterns in human psychology, and once you truly understand it, you will never mistake silence for absence again. Most people make the same mistake when someone they care about becomes quiet. They read the lack of words as the lack of feelings. They believe that if something meaningful truly existed inside that person, it would naturally come out. That if love were real, it would speak. That if care existed, it would appear through conversations, reaching out, or regular contact. But this belief gets human psychology completely backwards. The human mind does not become silent when it is empty. It becomes silent when it is overflowing. When something inside a person grows beyond what language can carry without breaking apart, the words stop coming. Not because there is nothing there, but because what is there feels too important to reduce into simple speech. Think about the moments in your own life when you felt completely overwhelmed, not just slightly uncomfortable, truly and deeply moved by something. During those moments, did words come easily? Or did you find yourself staring into space, lying quietly, or simply sitting with the feeling because no sentence seemed big enough to explain it? That is what emotional weight does. It creates silence. The person who has gone quiet around you is not standing there with an empty mind. They are standing beneath something they still do not know how to lift into words without dropping it. They are carrying the awareness of what exists between both of you. The importance of what they feel, the fear of what honest expression might cost them, and the pressure of knowing that whatever they say next will matter in a way that can never be taken back. That is not emptiness. That is someone holding something delicate and enormous at the same time, afraid that the moment they begin speaking, they might break the only thing that has ever felt this real. When someone pulls away, the mind of the person left behind immediately starts searching for a reason. And almost every answer it finds points inward. You begin reviewing what you said, what you did not say, how you behaved, whether you asked for too much or gave too little, whether something about you pushed them toward the distance they are now keeping. This is one of the most painful and most common misunderstandings of human behavior. When a person withdraws, they are not judging your worth. They are reacting to something happening inside themselves that has very little to do with your value and everything to do with their own inner world. Their withdrawal is not a verdict. It is a reflex. And like every reflex, it happens before the conscious mind has time to examine it, question it, or choose another response. The human mind has one main purpose above everything else: protect itself. And when something appears that feels too big, too real, or too demanding for a depth they are not sure they can maintain, the protective system switches on automatically. It creates distance just as the body pulls away from a flame, not because the flame has no value, but because the system believes the heat is greater than it currently knows how to handle without being changed by it. And this is what makes the experience so quietly heartbreaking for the person watching it happen. The more genuine the connection becomes, the stronger the protective reflex often is. The more someone truly matters, the more intense the withdrawal can appear. So the person receiving the distance sees it as proof they do not matter. At the exact moment, it may actually be evidence of the opposite. Their retreat is about their emotional capacity, not your value. There is a common belief that feeling and expression always move together, that the stronger someone feels, the easier those emotions will flow out, that a deeply moved person will always show it clearly, that love, if it is strong enough, will naturally become loud. But this is rarely how it works in people who experience emotions at great depth. What most people never realize is that the intensity of feeling and the ability to express it are two different abilities. They do not exist in the same part of a person. Someone can carry emotions of enormous size and weight while having almost no access to the words needed to express them properly. And the larger those feelings become, the wider the gap between experience and expression usually grows. Think about it this way. A shallow stream moves fast, makes noise, and is easy to notice from far away. But a deep river moves slowly. The amount it carries is so great that it does not need to rush or announce itself. Its depth is exactly what makes it seem almost still from certain angles. The person who has become quiet around you may be carrying more inside than anyone who has ever spoken easily in your presence. Their silence is not the sign of someone with little to give. It is often the sign of someone whose feelings have become so large that every word seems too small, too limited, and unworthy of what they are truly experiencing inside. Casual emotions create casual conversations. They are light enough to handle without much effort. But something that reaches the deepest parts of a person does not rise easily to the surface. It moves slowly, carefully, and often arrives long after the silence, before it has already spoken louder than words ever could. When someone you care about becomes quiet, your first instinct is to place yourself at the center of that silence, to treat it as a reaction toward you, a withdrawal from you, a message about what you mean to them, what you have done, or what they have decided about the future of your connection. The silence feels personal, because you are the one living inside it. But most of the time, it is not about you at all. What appears from the outside as someone pulling away from another person is usually, on the inside, someone being pulled deeper into themselves. The silence they are keeping is not a wall built between the two of you. It is a room they have entered alone, because something you represent, something this connection has awakened, has forced them to face parts of themselves they spent years carefully avoiding. Real connection does exactly that. It does not simply bring comfort into an existing life without disturbing anything underneath. It reaches down into the foundation of a person and begins asking questions that ordinary life never required them to answer. Questions about who they truly are beneath the identity they created. Questions about what they genuinely want beneath the habits and patterns they accepted without thinking. Questions about whether they can truly show up for something meaningful without hiding behind the familiar safety of distance and control. Those questions are not easy to face. They do not disappear overnight. They require someone to stand before themselves without their usual defenses and honestly see what is there. That process is uncomfortable in a way that makes silence feel like the only truthful response while it is unfolding. If this is speaking to you right now, if you recognize this person, or even recognize yourself in what I am describing, leave a comment below with the word quiet. I want to know how many of you have been living inside this same silence, whether you are on one side of it or the other. There is something hidden inside almost every person who has ever been deeply hurt that most people never stop to examine. It does not announce itself. It does not appear as obvious damage or something clearly broken. It simply remains there, quietly woven into the way a person responds to closeness, vulnerability, and anything carrying the weight of genuine meaning. And when something real enters their life, when a connection forms that truly matters, that hidden part awakens, not as a conscious choice, not as a carefully planned decision. It activates the same way old wounds always do when pressure is placed on them, automatically, instantly, before the person even realizes what is happening inside. That is what unhealed pain truly does to a person. It does not simply make them sad or careful in ways that are easy to notice. It freezes them at the exact moment when moving forward matters the most. It creates a kind of paralysis that, from the outside, looks almost the same as indifference. The person seems distant, unavailable, disconnected from something that should, by every visible sign, be pulling them closer. But inside, the opposite is happening. Inside, they are not unaffected at all. They are so deeply affected that those emotions have nowhere to go. The feeling is real, powerful, and important, but standing between that feeling and any expression of it is every wound they have never fully healed. Every time they were honest and paid the price for it. Every time they opened their heart and were met with something that made them regret doing so. Every time they allowed something to matter and ended up carrying the weight of that experience completely alone. None of that history disappears simply because something new has entered their life. It stands between what they feel and what they are able to express, making forward movement seem much more frightening than staying still. The easiest way to understand someone's silence is to assume nothing is happening, that the quiet means a pause, a retreat, or a step away from something instead of a journey deeper into it. The person waiting on the other side of that silence almost always chooses the most obvious explanation. And the most obvious explanation is stillness. Nothing moving, nothing changing, nothing growing. But this is exactly where the misunderstanding begins. The most meaningful transformations inside a person rarely announce themselves. They do not arrive with visible progress or obvious signs of change. They happen in the private places that no one else is allowed to enter. In those unseen hours when a person is not performing for anyone, but simply sitting with the truth of what they are experiencing and allowing it to reshape them. This kind of growth is quiet. It is not visible from the outside. To anyone watching, it can look almost identical to standing still. Yet beneath that calm surface, something is rearranging itself at a level deeper than behavior, deeper than habits, deeper than the conscious choices a person makes about how they present themselves to the world. What you are witnessing in their silence is not someone who has stopped moving forward. It is someone who has gone so deeply inward that speaking has temporarily become impossible without disturbing what is still taking shape inside them. They cannot explain it yet because it is not yet ready to be explained. It is still forming in the only place where real transformation truly happens. Beneath language, beneath appearances, beneath everything, a person knows how to show another human being before the process is complete. Their silence is not the absence of movement. It is movement happening so deeply that the surface cannot yet reveal it. Most people believe that what keeps someone from speaking is the fear of hearing the word no. They assume silence is simply protection against rejection, against the vulnerability of offering something real and watching it be refused. That belief sounds reasonable. It feels psychologically accurate, yet most of the time it tells only part of the story, because rejection, painful as it may be, still leaves the truth untouched. If someone speaks honestly and is rejected, they still leave, knowing they were seen for who they really are, even if they were not what the other person needed. That kind of pain has a shape, it has boundaries, and eventually it comes to an end. Being misunderstood is something entirely different. When someone expresses something deeply meaningful and it is received the wrong way, interpreted through the wrong perspective, reduced into something smaller, simpler, or less important than it truly is, the pain becomes far more confusing than rejection. Because now, the truth they offered has not simply been refused. It has been changed into something it was never meant to be. They are left watching someone respond to a version of them that does not actually exist. And they cannot correct that misunderstanding without fearing they might only make things worse. This is what keeps people who feel the deepest emotions so quiet. It is not the fear that you will reject them. It is the fear that you will misunderstand what they are truly trying to say. That the feelings they spent so much time trying to understand and express will come out imperfectly and be mistaken for something ordinary, casual, or far less meaningful than they really are. So, they wait. They carry those feelings inside until they believe they have found words careful enough, clear enough, and precise enough to protect them from being misunderstood by the one person whose understanding matters more than anyone else's. There is something hidden beneath every long silence that almost no one thinks to look for. Not a statement, not a final decision, not a withdrawal that has already reached its ending, but a question. One the silent person does not yet have the words, the courage, or the certainty to ask directly. Still, it exists in every quiet moment they share with you, in every pause that lasts longer than expected, in every conversation that stops just before reaching the emotional depth both of you can feel waiting underneath. The question itself is simple, but its meaning is enormous. It is asking whether you will still be there when the silence finally ends, whether the connection between you is strong enough to survive the time they need to become the person capable of crossing that emotional distance. Whether you are someone who can live with uncertainty without turning it into a final conclusion, without deciding that silence means everything is over, without filling the unanswered space with an ending they never actually gave you. Most people cannot remain inside that kind of waiting forever. Eventually, they become impatient. They search for certainty by forcing an answer the other person was never ready to give. They mistake the absence of words for the presence of a conclusion. Then, they begin building the next chapter of their lives around an ending that was never truly spoken, and in doing so, they answer the silent question in the most painful way possible. They confirm the very fear that created the silence from the beginning. The fear that they were too difficult to wait for, that their feelings, no matter how genuine, were not enough for someone to stay through the uncertainty those feelings required. Their silence is not hiding something from you. It is quietly discovering something about you. You have now heard everything that silence has never been able to say for itself. And if you have stayed with this message until now, then something inside you has already recognized what has been described, not as an interesting theory, not as a psychological idea that belongs only to other people, but as something you have personally experienced, something you have felt pressing against you from the other side of a silence that never completely made sense until now. So let this be the one truth you carry with you after hearing all of this. The person who has become quiet around you is not a puzzle that can be solved through distance, pressure, or by slowly pulling away yourself in order to avoid getting hurt. They are simply another human being living through one of the hardest inner experiences a person can face. They are carrying emotions too large for ordinary words, protecting themselves from feelings that have already grown beyond every emotional boundary they believed they had, facing parts of themselves that your presence alone was honest enough to awaken, working through pain that existed long before you entered their life, changing in ways that cannot yet be seen, searching for words, careful enough to protect what they feel from being misunderstood by the one person whose understanding means everything to them. And beneath all of that is one quiet question they still cannot bring themselves to ask out loud. Will you still be there? Not because they are testing you, not because they are playing games or carefully planning every move, but because something inside them has been disappointed before, hurt before, misunderstood before, and left carrying the weight of its own honesty before. Deep inside, they truly do not yet know the answer. You do not have to wait forever. But before deciding what their silence means, understand what it really is. It is not the ending of something meaningful. It is someone trying, in the only way they currently know how, to find their way toward the beginning of something honest enough, strong enough, and real enough to finally be spoken aloud.